back. Now, coming up next on the show, we're going to be talking 21st century STEM education. Yesterday, President Akufo-Addo announced a vigorous reorientation of the educational system to focus more on science and technology, describing it as unacceptable, the production of 6,000 engineers annually in the country. He's been warning of the trend, if not checked, which could leave Ghana behind in competing at the global level. Now, to fix it, the president announced the start of the construction of the Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics Academy in selected parts of the country. 16 of them that we're looking at, and the first one right here in Accra. Let's hear what the president had to say.
With a population of some 30 million people, our nation produces annually some 6,000 engineering graduates, whereas Vietnam, with a population of some 97 million people, produces 100,000 engineering graduates per annum. By the same measure, Ghana should be producing at least 30,000 engineers annually for the desired level of socio-economic transformation. Already, as part of my commitment to the advancement of STEM education in the country, government has commenced the development of 20 STEM centers and 10 model STEM senior high schools across the country, which are at various stages of completion. Some of these schools will be operationalized this year. These institutions and centers will be fitted with state-of-the-art equipment and laboratories to facilitate teaching and learning in all areas of study, including artificial intelligence and robotics. Within the next 24 months, God willing, the Accra STEM Academy will be completed from kindergarten to senior high school, with an expected student population of some 2,000 students. The Accra STEM Academy, being constructed at a cost of some 32 million cedis, will equip learners from kindergarten to senior high school with 21st century skills in problem solving, creativity, communication, collaboration, data literacy, digital literacy, and computer science. In addition, the Accra STEM Academy will be a place where learners in junior high school will be provided with the options of learning basic engineering, manufacturing, and global studies to help them make informed decisions on their preferred programs of choice at senior high school level.
So that was Mr. President. The Education Minister, Dr. Yawase Educhum, was also there at the event, and he had this to share.
And today we are here, we have begun the education transformation agenda. I call it the renaissance of education in Africa. We are beginning what will be the dawn of a new time, a new era in education. The vision of the president is that if we don't transform education, education cannot play its rightful role in transforming the economy. In the fourth industrial revolution, our students should be learning in spaces and learning things that will change their minds for them to transform the country. So the first STEM Academy in Ghana is going to begin today here with the short curtain by His Excellency, the President. His vision that in the fourth industrial revolution for Africa to compete, we need to have the great minds starting from kindergarten, focusing on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. He has already commissioned the construction of schools at the senior high school level. 10 schools are going to be opened this year focusing on STEM at the secondary. But he also believes that there has to be a pipeline, and that is the reason behind the Accra STEM Academy, beginning from kindergarten all the way to high school. Robotics is going to be done. Internet of Things will be here. Artificial intelligence will be here. This school has 28 classrooms, 14 laboratories.
So that was Mr. President and, of course, the Education Minister, both of them sharing their thoughts on the matter. Our guests for this discussion, we have Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies, and Kofi Asare, Executive Director, Africa Education Watch. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Right. I'll start with you, Kofi, from the outset. So this is, like I said, it's not novel because it had been hinted at when it comes to the education minister and some of what he had said in the past. Now we're seeing the actual phase of rolling them out with this sort cutting. Encouraging, the president was pointing to the fact that we produce 6,000 engineers. It does not suffice if we want to spur on that industrial revolution. Does this step encourage you, Kofi?
Once again, good morning. What encourages me more is when every junior high school in this country is given a befitting STEM facility so that the students in Timshire Primary 6, when they graduate to junior high school 1, will also have the opportunity of studying robotics and engineering and the Internet of Things and all that associates or comes with the STEM Academy here in Accra. Government has a STEM policy. And the STEM policy within the education strategic plan of government sets out clear targets. The target includes achieving the 60-40 STEM ratio in our institutions. If you want to achieve an increment in STEM, in terms of the numbers, the subscriptions, and the quality, holistically and in a balanced manner across the entire country, the first priority would be to, in an equitable manner, provide facilities in the 10,000 plus junior high schools across the country. Facilities that they do not have. The junior high school is now just 3 rooms with no facility. So after you have provided that, okay, then you move the next step to ensure that the 4,000 primary schools, which is 25% of primary schools, that do not even have a junior high school at all. They don't even have just the 3 rooms. Provide them with same and equip these ones. It is after you have done this, or as you are doing this, that you say that in addition to catering for the need of the entire population, let me set up this STEM Academy to be a model center which will be actually subscribed to by about 1% or less of the population. That approach would have gladdened my heart. But an approach where, as I said, 4,000 primary schools do not even have junior high school at all. And in the junior high schools that exist, there are about 2,000 of them that operate under trees and sheds. And apart from that, in those that do not operate under trees and sheds, in the 10,000 junior high schools, those that do not operate under trees and sheds, they do not have any STEM facility. It's just 3 rooms. If we have not been able to tackle this issue, how do we start? How do we start by approaching a specialist or segregationist or positive discriminatory approach by setting up STEM academies for 1% of the students, and then saying that later we are considering the broader STEM needs of the entire citizenry.
Are you suggesting, Kofi, that this is like putting the cart before the horse, that we are prioritizing wrongly? Is that what you're saying? It's a good step, but this is wrong prioritization?
Of course. The cart is way before the horse, because our target, as I'm saying, our target in the education strategic plan, it is specifically mentioned, is to ensure that every junior high school has STEM facilities. That is target 1. Target 2, every junior high school has STEM teachers. That is what is in the education strategic plan. That plan is not an African Education Word document. It's a plan of the government of Ghana, the Ministry of Education. And I am saying that it is complementary to have this specialist approach to build a master facility training center targeting, grooming certain people from kindergarten level to senior school level to be experts. There's nothing wrong with that. But we say something in tree that in a situation where your junior high schools do not have computer laboratories, your junior high schools do not have adequate number of STEM teachers, and there are junior high schools that have only one teacher teaching from primary 1, junior high school 1 to junior high school 3. If you have not yet made a conscious effort to equip junior high schools with STEM facilities across the country, and you want to start by visibly building model academies, one in each region, then obviously you are solving the problem for just 1% of the population or less. I'm talking about the few that can have access to this academy. And let me be frank. This is a day school situated in Iowa, West Region. A student in Greater Accra region who is in Ningo Pram Pram cannot attend the school. A student in Kwon Katamaso or Dangbe West, Dodowa, cannot attend the school. A student in South, West, Amasama, English from obviously cannot attend the school, because you can't start attending school in kindergarten 1 and be commuting 2 hours, 3 hours every day, in and out about 6 hours and going to school. And you are going to start that school and complete at senior high school. So obviously the school is for those who are living around Medina, Legon, and then the inner perimeter of the Accra. You understand? So this is something targeting a few.
But we could look at boarding facilities to enable such situations, right? We could look at creating boarding facilities.
If after providing standard facilities in junior high schools, you want to have a model center to focus on specialist education, which is great, you would like to do it a boarding school, because there may be talents across the Greater Accra region that are interested or that may qualify to enter that particular facility and specialize. But in view of their geographical location, it will be impossible, because this school is built as a day school.
Right. Okay, Peter, let me take your initial thinking of this entire policy direction that we're starting up, and I would like you to look at it from this angle as well. Kofi suggests that we have our schools. We've not dealt with the basic problems, and we seem to be putting the cart before the horse. But the other situation is the world is developing technologically, and no one is waiting for you to catch up. You must find a way of catching up while you're still doing other things. Now, these schools are going to focus on STEM. We're talking about artificial intelligence, robotics, and the rest. Do you subscribe to what Kofi is saying, that we should deal with the basics first before we get here? Because someone else will tell you that by the time we'll get there, others there'll be light years ahead of us. What is your take?
So you want to catch up, then what you do is you start building an academy that will take you 2 years to complete. Once you have teachers in the system who can be trained within months, and then they will start impacting knowledge to the students. Once you have schools already in place, which can be equipped with the needed resources, so that the catching up that you want to do, you can quickly start doing it. You see, the problem that we have with this whole policy is that ideally, when you want to solve a problem, like the president was talking about, the problem of we not having enough scientists, engineers, and all those things, you will need to put your ideas on paper. You need to let and then the feasible solutions available to address those problems. That is what is done in any kind of policy process. But in our situation, what we know is that there is a desire to ensure that we catch up with our science and engineering and mathematics education. And the only way that we think we can do that is to start the building of infrastructure for the next 1 and then 2 years. What about the other alternatives available that can be adopted in order to ensure that we'll be able to reach the same destination that the president is talking about. So yes, I agree perfectly with Kofi that we are putting the cart before the horse. We want to always leave a legacy without thinking about the implication and the overall impact of what we want to do on the total education sector. And that is what this is really about. This is about people want to do something so that in the next 5, 10, 20 years, when they are not around, we can mention their names and say that it is during their time that they did this. That is all what our policies have been about. It is not about...
Are you suggesting, Peter, pardon my jumping in, pardon my jumping down your throat, but are you suggesting that in this instance, it's just a gimmick, it's basically propaganda? I want my name to be etched into the annals or the history books that it was during my time that I started these STEM schools and blah, blah, blah. Is it much ado about nothing?
Yes, because if you want to solve a problem, if you want to increase the number of students that are doing engineering, that would want to do engineering, that would want to learn robotics, that would want to learn artificial intelligence, you have schools already in place. The problem with the schools is that they do not have teachers who can teach those things. Or even if they have, teachers are not so much equipped to teach those things. Again, the problem is that they do not have the needed equipment and facilities to teach those things. So if the idea is to solve that problem, you just start from where you have what we say in education. You start from the known to the unknown. What you have already is at the schools, high schools that are even doing very well. What you need equipment and infrastructure, and then the students already in the school, they can now start the learning of these things and they progress to the tertiary institutions. Now you want to use 24 months to build something before the students will go in there, and then what happens? It means that you just want to leave a legacy. You just want to put something there for people to see that you have also done something when you were in charge. And that attempt to solving our problems in the education sector is what has brought us here. It is what is killing the sector, and it is what will collapse the education in this country.
Kofi, when it comes to...
So
I'll give you a bite. I want you to go exactly there because I know you would also have a take on whether this is just another legacy project or something. What is your quick take?
No, it's a legacy project. I mean, we don't have to discuss that further. It's a legacy project. Listen, we make reference to Vietnam. Quickly, we have this tension of comparing ourselves to countries that have taken time and planned their progress through the educational ladder of the world. We always want to compare to them and then try and adapt quick fixes approach. Vietnam is a good case for STEM. Singapore is a good case for STEM, and all those countries. Not because they set up STEM academies overnight and then tackle this issue, on the fast lane. No, there are no quick fixes in this business. The approach to having this specialist, the approach to having a specialist strategy towards STEM, if you like, is built on a foundation where there is first a generalist opportunity for everybody. Listen very well. So you don't start it by setting up model schools, equipping them, and then leaving the others. As we sit here, we have been complaining for the past 4 years that basic education has been neglected, especially since the introduction of the free senior high school. In terms of funding, secondary education is taking most of the funding that used to come to basic, and we have raised that issue. Capitation grant has been in arrears for 2 academic years, two academic years, okay? And capitation grant is the money that is used to run schools, 2 academic years. There are so many issues with basic education that tells everyone who is not even a specialist in the sector that it's not government priority. But government priority is secondary. Every money secondary needs is available. Basic is always an issue. The point I want to make is that if you want to solve the problem of STEM in Ghana by building an interest, building a strong foundation for students in primary schools to enhance their proficiency levels in STEM, what you do is what is in the education strategic plan. You ensure that there are STEM teachers in every junior high school and primary school. You ensure that every junior high school and primary school has STEM facilities, continuous training for the STEM teachers. That is when students will begin to exhibit higher proficiencies in mathematics and science. Then when they progress from junior high school, they would have developed the interest. If you have not provided facilities in junior high schools for STEM, and you want to jump and come and set up model, what is the easiest way? Jump and come and set up model STEM academies, one in each region. Then obviously your objective is not to holistically tackle the issue of low interest, low participation, low proficiency of students in STEM at the foundational level in every community. And rather you want to now focus on just one community, perhaps around Ayawaso West. Ayawaso West will go set up one school that will be patronized by a few around the community, and then do what you couldn't do or what you are not interested in doing in the entire 15,000 primary schools, and do it in just one school. It is not impossible to do it. But the point is that it does not reflect the prioritization of resources, in the sense that 32 million Ghana cedis.
And we'll be getting into that. We'll be getting into that. I wanted to leave the financial details for last, because we are looking at the one for which we've had the short cutting, 32 million. And I'll have us look at that extensively, about whether we're getting value for money. But Peter, I want you to consider the fact that, and this is what President Akufo-Addo said. He expressed the fact that since 1987, right, it's been like a door of no return. Students at the senior high school level, they go through 6 years of education, and you may not necessarily get to do what you want based on what courses you take, what grades you get, and all of that. And some people may be pushed into science where they don't even want science. Others who want to do it may not even end up there. We have that situation. Put that on one end. He is talking about the fact that now I am creating these institutions, 21st century, state-of-the-art STEM institutions at 32 million Ghana cedis, but we'll get to the figures, where from kindergarten to SHS, you're going to have the chance of going through science-based education, honing your skills, developing your interest to the point where you take, for example, basic engineering courses, so that if I want to become an engineer in future, it is easy. You would realize that some of the Asian tigers, they have such situations, which we have tried sometimes to copy, but not so well. And that is why, right from the start, students are able to determine that I want to be this, and they are able to follow through. Don't you think that is a good thing? Hello, Peter, please unmute.
I think any idea to ensure that students master in science, any idea to make sure that our science front, I mean in the education sector, is equipped with the needed infrastructure and resources is welcomed. I think that any country that pays particular attention to science is on the probability of that country prospering is high. So whatever thing that we would want to do or we can do to ensure that we are meeting the challenges of the 21st century is welcome. The problem is this. Is the only way to address this the path that has been chosen by the president and the minister? That is
which is what? Which path? Which is what?
Building the STEM academies. Is that the only way to ensure that we kickstart interest in kids when it comes to science, engineering, technology, mathematics education? Is that the only way? Is that the most potent way to ensure that we'll be able to achieve the increment in students that pursue science? Is that the only way that we'll be able to achieve the quest to make sure students have specific interest in science education? That is the problem that we are trying to look at. And that is why you always need to have a policy document, put it out there, allow stakeholders, policy analysts to dissect the document and then help you fine-tune it so that when you put it out and when you start implementation, it will be something that is acceptable and something that makes reason to anybody who is into policy analysis. Because when you have identified a problem, like you have just enumerated by the president, and you want to solve it, there are other ways that you can go about it. And there are financials attached to all these other feasible alternatives. Did they do that? And what were other options available to ensure that students' interest in STEM education can be improved? And when they did the financials, was this the most feasible alternative that would give us the needed results in the just a distant future? So this is the point that we are coming from. People are over the years, people are advocating for comprehensive secondary education, where on one campus you have various kinds of TVET is in there, second grammar type is there, the science is there. And this is a trend that most advanced countries want to pursue. Now we want to even go to a style that is a little bit challenging. When you look at the literature, compartmentalization, we want to now do specialized schools here and there, which is a little bit challenging when you look at the literature. So the question is this the most feasible alternative to ensure that Ghanaian students are more proficient, they are more interested in science and engineering education? And if that is the answer that they had, then it's quite unfortunate from my perspective.
Peter, are you saying, look at this from these two perspectives, are you saying that this was a shoddy job done from two perspectives? One, that institutions like yours were not really factored in, considered when these decisions were being arrived at, and two, from the economic logic, 32 million. Like I said, we'll get there, but just to tease off the issues, are you saying that from these two angles, first of all, the lack of engagement and the cost compared to what other alternatives we have and how we could have expended less to get more, it doesn't really make sense? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that, well, the ministry and the government have the power to come out with any policy that they have. They have their consultants, they might have their policy analysts and others. So technically, we don't even matter here. But the point is that, as a journalist, have you seen any document on this term academics? You haven't. And I tell you, yesterday I was saying that it's like people are keeping some of these things to their chest as if when they put it out there, people will copy. And you know that attitude when we used to be in primary school, you are covering your work because you're afraid somebody will copy and score this. We don't do this in policy implementation and policy issues. By this time, the Ministry of Education should have a policy document on these STEM academies in their website, on their website, and all stakeholders like us should have copies of this, so that we can now delve into the reasoning behind what they are doing. And when I don't know the reason behind what they are doing, and I stick to what the president has said and what the minister is saying, just that they want to ensure that science and maths engineering education is given the needed attention and the boost, so that we'll be able to provide the needed engineers, teach them IAs, robotics, and other things. Then I tell you that the option that they selected is wrong, because financially and in economic sense and in policy analysis, that option is costly. It's going to lead to a neglect of a vast majority of our students, as have been indicated by my brother Kofi, and all other challenges. And these are infrastructures you are putting up. How sure are we that even within the 24 months you will be able to put this up? And what is the guarantee that the next government, in case there's a change in government in 2024, will be interested in completing these things? So you see, that is the problem that we have. We needed to have thought this well, give the feasible alternatives, and then we will be able to settle on something that will help all of us, all kids in Ghana who are interested in pursuing science, engineering, mathematics education. And that would have been better than the option that they have chosen. And as I said already, this is a legacy project. That is all what it's about.
Kofi, so let's get into the money. Money matters. Let's talk kudi, kwacha, sika. When you multiply the 32 by 16, you get 512. So we are sinking 512 million Ghana cedis into this project, likely over the next 2 years. When you divide that by 6, which is more or less the current figure when it comes to the exchange rate to the dollar, we're looking at $85.33 million. So $85 million, 512 million Ghana cedis over 2 years to achieve this. Value for money, is it worth it? Regardless of all the other concerns, this is a policy direction. Is it worth it? If not, why?
The first question I asked yesterday in respect of value for money was, how was the procurement of the STEM Academy done? We are doing a lot of work around procurement and value for money this year. And we realized that at the Ministry of Education, almost every expenditure, which is significant, is always single sourced. From calculators to past questions to STEM centers, everything is single source. All the huge procurement items are single source. And even if you go to the Public Procurement Authority website, you won't find information on that. For the Ministry of Education alone. All the other ministries, you find procurement information, but MOE alone, there's nothing there. Now, in the midst of our campaign to ensure that the ministry adapts competitive procurement approaches, because the president in 2015 spread the same worry and promised that when he comes into government, he will ensure that the culture of procurement in the public service will rather be a competitive procurement, while the single source procurement will become an exception. Unfortunately, at the Ministry of Education, it is still the other way around. Single source is still the culture. So I asked myself, how was the contractor procured? That's the first question we must ask. The second question is that if the second submission is that if I had 32 million Ghana cedis, I would have rather spent that 32 million Ghana cedis upgrading or providing STEM facilities in about 100 junior high schools. That would mean that I will spend 300,000 Ghana cedis in each school, providing computer facilities and then science laboratories, which is possible. So this amount of money can equip at least 100 junior high schools. The one that is going to be established in another region, 100. So by the time you do 10 in 10 regions, that is 1,000 junior high schools. That is why I feel that not a gradualist, but then the holistic approach, a much more mainstreamed approach to enhancing participation, interest, proficiency, quality of STEM education in Ghana is best and rather more in the national interest, because it assures more of equity than a specialist approach where you throw in so much of money that should have gone to about 100 schools into just one school to be attended by a few people around the locality, whilst the majority of the people do not have access to that facility. So when it comes to value for money, I will say that on the score of efficiency, I don't think it's the most efficient way to use 32 million. On the score of economy, I think that if this amount of money was used to support the development of STEM facilities in 100 junior high school, it would have amounted to a much more economical way of spending 32 million Ghana cedis. So that is how I see the value for money analysis at the preliminary level from the economy and then the efficiency angle.
Okay.
But the questions that I'm asking, and what we are asking is that if the procurement of the STEM Academy is following the culture of single source procurement at the Ministry of Education, and if I say the Ministry of Education, I say it passionately because about 25% of the nation's expenditure is incurred in that ministry. So it portends a lot for the national kitty. If the STEM academies are also being procured through single source procurement, the way laptops are being procured single source, the way calculators single source, past questions single source, STEM centers single source, everything single source, then we should change the approach, because in a country where we have about 1.5 billion financing gap in our educational sector, we do not have the luxury of using uncompetitive procurement methods, because spending efficiency should be the hallmark of such an economy where we want to maximize the little resources we have to make maximum impact.
Peter, your quick take on this. How do you rationalize 32 million Ghana cedis being pumped into this, 512 million Ghana cedis, across the 16 regions? How do you rationalize it? What are your, how else could we have expended this money? Peter, very quickly on this one. It appears we just lost Peter. So I'll come back to you, Kofi. We've talked about all of these, and it is clear. We had alternatives. But government and the Education Ministry has decided anyway that this is the way forward. How do we make the most of this option anyway? How do we make the most of this option? We've already started. Unless there's some shift in policy or a paradigm shift and we decide we're not going to run this course anymore, we have to complete this. How can we make the most of it? That's the question. If you were executing this willy-nilly, even against your will, how would you ensure that it works out?
I think to make the most of it, the first we need to do is to provide accommodation facilities at the center. So boarding setup. Boarding facilities at the center.
Right.
So that the center becomes useful to children who do not live within the perimeter of the project, but still live in the region, because they're supposed to be the region. That is the first thing. I'm saying so because, as I said earlier, any approach towards STEM education must be inclusive. It must not be inequitable. It must be equitable. And one of the ways to mitigate the inequities in this approach is to ensure that you have facilities that makes it possible.
We are losing your sound, Kofi. We just lost your sound.
Sorry.
Right.
I actually. So one of the issues with the approach is how inequitable specialist approaches are. Now, to mitigate the impact of this inequity associated with specialist approaches to resolving such issues, if you have accommodation facilities or boarding facilities in this academy, it will be possible for children in Ningo Pram Pram and Dangwe West and Ga South and Ga West and English amount from all in Greater Accra to be able to participate in this, to use these facilities to upgrade their capacity, instead of you leaving it for children around Ayawaso, Sugon, Kwantanan, Medina, Ga East, and then the airport area to go and attend. I think that is one of the things we can do to mitigate the inequity. The second thing we can do is that we need to, alongside putting 500 million Ghana cedis in this, we need to have a plan to holistically upgrade STEM facilities in our junior high schools. That is what can complement, that is what should be done for this to rather complement. That foundation needs to be built. We need to build a foundation in our junior high schools. Look, it is not easy, but we are not in government to do the easy things. We don't elect our leaders to come and do the easiest things. No. We let our leaders to come and do difficult things, to come and have difficult conversations, take difficult decisions, and confront difficult situations head on, holistically, once and for all. So we cannot run away from the fact that the 10,000 junior high schools, including the school in Tintimshe, need STEM facilities. And the fact that we need to provide them. Providing STEM facilities for only a few, less than 1% of the populace in one location or two locations in the region is not a solution to holistically improving our participation in STEM. Right. Vietnam, Singapore, South Korea, and all those countries are STEM models in Ghana, in the world today, right, not because they established STEM academies, but because within their entire educational system, within the population, they holistically upgraded STEM facilities in every school and provided STEM teachers in every school, and incentivized STEM teaching and supported STEM pedagogy, to make it more interesting. Holistically, it is after that they introduced the specialist approach in terms of the STEM academies. It is not before that. And so this is not a substitute to improving STEM facilities in all junior high schools. This must be complementary. We want to see the foundational issues resolved first before this one begins to operate after 2 years. Right. That will be the best strategy moving forward for government.
Maybe 30 seconds to give your summary comments. Anything else maybe you haven't snuck in yet?
The Ministry of Education will have to produce a policy document guiding the development and the operationalization of this STEM academy. We still haven't seen any operational documents. We've seen no policy documents, and we want to encourage the ministry that, you see, this our governance model is challenging. Sometimes you wonder what kind of governance model we are running, where everything is kept secret. You go to the ministry's website, there's no policy document there. So it's as if officialdom is not interested in, disclosing information regarding their policies to the citizenry. So no one knows what this thing is about. We were just told in a speech, all we are discussing is what was in the speech of the president. But you want the ministry to be open, to embrace open governance, and be open about some of these policy programs. Publish the policy documents on your website. Let us see how you intend to run the STEM academies. What is the brain behind the STEM academies? And the whole concept behind the STEM academies and its operational framework. Right. Then citizens can have the basis to do constructive engagement on your STEM academies. But in a situation where everything you want to do is in your head, you deny everyone, including the media, an opportunity to have the content and information to participate in policy discourse. Right. And that is not the way to expand the civic space. You rather constrict the civic space by denying citizens access to critical information relating to the service delivery or policy implementation. So the Ministry of Education must provide us the policy documents guiding not STEM, but this particular STEM academic concept, so that we can have a more constructive discussion on the concept, the operational framework, the ideology behind the STEM academy that we have established in Ghana, or we intend to establish in Ghana, so that we can have a more constructive engagement and make an input, if only they will listen to the process.
Kofi, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us, and very, very important points that you have actually raised. Thank you, and do have a lovely day. Well, the verdict, I guess, is that STEM education, yes, sorely needed. The question is, are we using the right approach? That is the big question. This is where we actually sew it all up on the AM show for another morning. Tomorrow, we'll bring you more fireworks right here. My name is Benjamin Akako, and we're very grateful that you've watched us through these 3 hours. Have a lovely day.